Alright, here we are. Whether you see me as there's that house-breaking heroin junkie, or whether you see me as that guy that is in recovery at the RAEL organization that was founded by Mr. Wall, whether you see me as a person that spreads hope, however you see me is the way you see me. And just like I read the 12 steps of insanity the other night, I can't change the way people see me, but I can change who I am. And good evening, Sharon. How's it, Thanks there in the den with a meeting that one of our younger guys in recovery is giving. And lekker klatje. Good evening, everybody. How's it, Dion? And Jack Gladden's also watching. I see the orange ribbons is flowing already. Auntie Michelle, awesome stuff. And however, whoever sees me and whatever they think of me, I can't change. But there was a couple of things in life that I seen in a different way to what I see now. And it took a lot of learning. It took a lot of knocking my head. Not all the marks are there, but not all the marks, or not all the head knocking was physical. And it took a lot of pain to be able to get to the point to learn from another man's mistakes sometimes. You know, most of us go through our lives and our teenage years thinking that we're invincible and untouchable and things like that. And I was exactly that. You know, the class clown, one of the cool kids kind of thing. But I think that our perception of drug addicts and substance abusers and all of that is something that we need to work hard at changing. You know, and yeah, I come from a normal, I'd say, middle class family. Dad worked hard. There was I never ever went to bed hungry. I had lots of privileges and lived a privileged life. And so from there, I think there was maybe certain things, maybe a lot of contributing factors that I thought that I needed to act in certain ways or whatever to be noticed. So the behaviors that I needed to change in recovery was there a long time before the drugs. How's it, Richie, Lee J, Laura, Gregory, cool man. And those behaviors were there a long time before the drugs were ever tasted or ever even known of. And I was very competitive. I had to be the best at what I done. I had to win. I was a very bad loser. And I think the main thing and the good trait about that was that I would try again and again and again until I got something right, or until I did get the satisfaction out of doing it better. I had a good work ethic. I think that comes from my dad. I watched him all my life go to work and back. Many years service and dedication to to the same job. And obviously, I didn't grow up mentally, but growing up physically, and my age number getting higher and higher, and going through high school, obviously introduced to different things, thinking that it's cool, and it's the same thing that's happening nowadays. That time it just wasn't codeine, cough mixture, and Xanax, and all of that. Those days it started off by inhaling petrol, lighter gas, and Tipex thinners, huffing thinners, and that kind of stuff. And it possibly even started by there was a want or something that needed to be filled, and to me it didn't matter what attention I was getting, as long as I was getting attention, whether it was being cucked out, or whether it was being laughed at, or whether it was being praised, or whatever. I had this craving for attention. And I think later on, as things progressed and things like that, like your circle of friends notice now that you're in standard 4, whatever, standard 3, standard 4, you smoking cigarettes, and that gets all the eyes on you. It then progresses to, I had a couple of groups of friends. I had my close group of friends, and I was very, very energetic. I would come home after school. That side of things, my mom would make sure that my homework was done and all of that, and then I would go down to, at that time it was called Jock Shop. That was the game shop with pool tables and all of that. That's where I believe my hospitality and my chefing career started. I was about 9 or 10 years old. I was standing on a dairy bulk crate washing dishes, and it was like sort of to be involved, and because I liked the atmosphere there. There were lots of friends there. We played those old arcade games and things like that, and we also caught on a lot of kak there. We could smoke scullum eentjies there. And like anything, the kick that time of a cigarette, just because it was something naughty that we were doing, is different to now. It's almost like smoking in the lockdown kind of thing. And anyway, so over there we caught on a lot of nonsense, a lot of boys together, different ages and things like that, and older crowd was drinking already, and eventually progressed to smoking weed and drinking and stuff, and once I hit the booze at a young age, I obviously didn't know that I had alcoholic symptoms and signs then already. I obviously didn't know at the time. What alcohol done for me then, at that stage, it gave me more of that, that Dutch courage, or it made me even louder than what I was. It made me more of the sort of class clown, even when I wasn't in class. It allowed me to do more extreme things and stuff like that. And yeah, I would do weird things. I was rebellious, not because I was raised badly, but probably because I was looking for some sort of hole in the soul or gap to be filled, and done some vandalism, done weird things. Always took shortcuts and things like that. Also, at a very young age, I used to deliver newspapers for some extra pocket money and things like that. Always had house chores and things at home that I know isn't normal in every household anymore today, but taught from a young age, clean my own room, make up my own bed. We had dogs, and picking up the dog mess was my duty and things like that, and grew up with good morals, values, and ethic. And yeah, obviously got into these things innocently, and so then at that stage it was these under 18s parties and things like that, and we used to look forward to that. And groups of us would buy a bottle of vodka or whatever, and sit on the school field, jump over the school field, jump over the school's fence, and sit on the school field and drink, or whatever the case might be. Obviously, our parents thought that we're going to this under 18 place where there's lots of security and things don't. Good evening, Terry. How's it? And the way it was advertised the way the trans parties are advertised now, like that. There's lots of security, and we're always under surveillance and stuff, and it was just another way of me getting attention to see who could get the drunkest. And I was that oak that wanted to drink the most, or show that I can drink the most, and usually used to end up making a fool out of myself. But anyways, loved the attention. And I was passing at school. Life progressed. Before the legal age to work, as you can hear, I already started working and progressing. By 11 or 12, I was frying fish in the fisheries, making meatballs and things like that, and like sort of helping with the running of the game shop duties. That was also fisheries, and so I was doing that for sort of extra money. So to my parents, it was like something good that I was doing, but like we know, on the side, it's what was happening when I wasn't actually busy doing the work. And we had a massive group of friends. I remember in those days, I feel so old saying in those days, Angus, but in those days, it wasn't like it is now, where it's a small isolated group of people smoking tick in the Wendy house, or smoking tick amongst 3 or 4 people. We were big groups of friends, and you'd have your 4 or 5 close friends, and you'd meet up with another 2 or 3 groups of people, and you'd move around like that. And it was just enjoyable sometimes to walk from park to park, and you see who's chilling there, and doing things, and all of that. And alcohol was always involved. I suppose at that stage in our lives, that is what maybe made me think that I was one of the cool kids, or whatever. Not knowing that this was going to later on lead to friends committing suicide, overdoses, car accidents, and many destructive things, and not knowing that this was busy paving the way for me to become a full-blown heroin addict that would one day go to prison and live on the streets, and all of that. So life progressed, and I obviously outwardly looked like I was doing well. Mom made sure that I wasn't allowed to go out or leave the house if my duties weren't done, like the cleaning of my room and all of that. Also had some kitchen duties, like between myself and my sister, one would wash up, one would dry up, and things like that. Get cucked out if you leave your clothes in the shower that should be in the washing basket, and like normal household. So what I'm trying to say is that it can happen to anybody. Okay. So later on, house parties started progressing. There was a lot more house parties in our area then than what there is now, because now when there's a house party, then people's things get stolen, the house gets trashed, and there's lots of drugs involved. That time it wasn't that much drugs involved. It was a little bit of dacha. You'd sometimes smoke your bit of buttons or whatever before you got there, and things like that. By the middle of the end of standard 6, I was experimenting with all different things at that stage. Ecstasy had made a big comeback in the drug world. Trance music had started coming out, and and like a lot of high school kids, I was a little bit shorter, younger looking, and smaller than my friends, but all of them had started going to the over 18 clubs and experiencing and experimenting with acid and ecstasy and all of that. So I tried that, and obviously I couldn't get into the clubs, but we would go to house parties. We'd throw our own parties. We knew a couple of guys that at that stage as well. There was a lot of DJing and mixing. That was the craze at the time, and we obviously encouraged it because we would take the drugs and we would drink. It made you be able to drink more because you wouldn't get so pissed that you passed out. You would be able to handle your drink more and all of that. So in the progression of all of this, life outwardly still looked all good and things like that. I eventually had a casual job at the bakery. I was packing rolls while I was in high school. I was packing rolls, learning how to bake bread, and milk tarts and things like that. And yeah, because of my rebelliousness, when I got to high school, obviously the metalwork teacher told me I need to find another subject because he doesn't want me in his class, and which I now see later on, seen that it was a blessing in disguise, because then I joined the home economics class, which helped me pursue in the direction of cooking and chefing and the hospitality industry, which I think is sort of in our blood and in my genes. And so yeah, early in, I'd say late in December 98, also was at a place, people's parents were away. We were drinking milk stout because that's all that was available, but we weren't drunk. And we went for a joyride in a friend of mine's parents' car, a limited edition car that was left in the garage, and that today is a collector's item. But unfortunately, we wrote the car off, and there was eight of us in the car. None of us was hurt or injured or anything like that. But we hit 3 6-foot walls out of the ground, and you know, it was still not taking life seriously. I passed at school with, I'd say, almost without effort. Had a casual job in the holidays, was doing my thing, and then I experimented with something that was called Malpitta, and I woke up in Molnerton Mediclinic thinking that I'm in a hotel, and still didn't think that drugs or alcohol or the abuse of substances was a problem in my life. And so anyways, yeah, it's kak naughty. We had to rebuild the people's wall, and otherwise they were going to press charges. But the guy's father, the owner of the car, the guy who was driving, looked worse after his father came home for stealing the car than what he did after the accident. But anyways, he's doing very well now. He managed to come off the path of drug abuse and alcoholism and addiction many years ago. And anyway, so things progressed and all of that, and I was starting to find myself in a sort of career path that I enjoyed, and I'd serve people on the bakery counter. At this stage, I could bake bread, I could bake rolls, I could make milk tarts, I could do cook sisters, I could do all different kinds of donuts. I was making burgers and pies and you know, all these nice sort of start out start out things. And and the baker, the head baker at the place that I was working is I'm just checking a message coming up here. Yes, Isabel, you can inbox me and I'll give you our numbers and things like that, or Lee J will inbox you and send it. So yeah, then life obviously progressed and things like that. I still didn't realize, this hallucinogenic stuff that I took. It was a total nightmare, and woke up in hospital. I didn't smoke cigarettes for 9 days because I was so out of it that I forgot that I was a smoker. I woke up in the hospital with a nappy on, and apparently my family was told that if I survive, the possibility of me being a vegetable or not coming out of the trip is quite high. And that was in January 99. Yeah, that was 21 years ago. I'm 35 now. I was 14 years old then. And still progressing sort of in the right direction outwardly in life, but maybe a little bit lost. And I went through all these different stages and phases, In primary school, there was a lot of Tupac and gangster rap and things like that. And I think at the time that I thought I was related to Hitler because I was German. And well, I got a German surname and got German roots, and that made me a little bit crazy, and then so music also had a big influence on the direction of things that are done, and I later on then when I started smoking weed, it was a lot of reggae music and things like that. My whole style changed from the peppy jeans hanging under my arse, with the check shirts and the grasshoppers or the Converse, to sort of Rasta color clothes and dacha leaf earrings and maybe just looking and trying to figure out who I was and where my identity lied. And at this stage, like I said, I had my school group of friends, and then I had my game shop group of friends. And then there was another group of friends, because I got along with all different kinds of people. And then there was another group of friends that was a lot older, that was smoking weed and that was doing drugs and things like that. So I would sometimes, like for example, in a 6-week holiday, the 5 close knit friends, we'd sleep 2 or 3 days at my mom's place, 2 or 3 days at another friend's place, and then eventually, after doing that for about 3 weeks, we'd say like, okay, we're gonna have a break now and all sleep at our own houses. But when they used to go home in the evening, then I wouldn't go home. I would then stop at other friends along the way, and the people that they sort of wouldn't hang around with, and the people in the area that were classified as rubbish and scullums and all of that. And that had a big influence on me at the time, because they were older than me. They had been to prison. They were heavily addicted and involved in drugs and things already. I know out of that group of older men, there is also that I think there's still only 3 of them that are alive. One is still heavily into drugs and doing the wrong things, and buying and selling stolen items and stuff like that. The other one lives on the streets permanently, and the other one also, I think, lives on the streets permanently. And I've seen these people at a stage in their life where they were not normal, but where the drugs and the wheels hadn't come off yet, where what attracted me to the lifestyle was that they had nice cars, they would party, and that's sort of what I was into at the time. I partied hard, but I was never late for work and things like that. and there was even a stage while I was still at school that I, in the holidays, worked at at the bakery full time in the week, half days on the weekend, and then I still had 2 4-hour shifts on a Saturday and Sunday at Clicks as well. So I was working hard. I was passing at school and things like that, and yeah, the drugs obviously just got more and more because there must have been something wrong with my personality that I preferred feeling or the feeling when I was on something. And yeah, eventually the rave scene took off, like, 98, 99, and I went from like the Rasta sort of vibe and style to the black muscle tops, even though I didn't have muscles, with a white vest underneath, and with I used to put my hair in spikes and make it green on the one side and pink on the other side, and I don't know if anybody remembers those Buffalo high platform shoes, Buffalo Sketches and Bronx and all of that, and I drank beer every day at that stage when and smoked. If I wasn't drinking beer, then I was smoking weed, and eventually I was smoking buttons, and I was using ecstasy on weekends, and then eventually it became like on Wednesdays and weekends, and everything was still going all right. Later on, obviously, it progressed, and I finished school and things like that. I qualified as a chef. My parents helped me to study through City and Guilds, which is internationally recognized. Not only as a chef, so that's why I started the meeting off that some people view me like this, they view me like that, or whatever. But I wasn't born with a needle in my arm, and I'm trying to explain the progression of it. And yeah, I started drinking more, got into the hospitality. It's what we done there. Lots of drugs in the hospitality industry, and partying, and abnormal hours, working 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 hard and pushing the hours. I was so passionate about my chefing career. And sorry, by the way, I'm not a qualified chef. I've got a certificate in culinary arts and professional cookery, and then I got a distinction for, and then I got a credit for my diploma in professional cookery and culinary skills, advanced diploma that I got a credit for. And so at that stage, yeah, I couldn't see the damage that the alcohol was doing. You work functions, you use substances in the kitchen, around the kitchen. There's always drink at the functions and things like that. You're always going for drinks, and yeah, eventually beer became cool drink, and a way of life, and normal. And yeah, so I was doing a lot of drugs and things like that, and then I was introduced to crack, and that just took me. At this stage, I hadn't really sold anything for drugs, or made loans or borrowed any money, and I noticed with this specific drug, I sort of pawned a watch here and there, or would excuse me. I sort of pawned a watch here and there, or I would sell something, or whatever. but always still able to get it back. So I became a regular customer at Cash Crusaders, Cash Converters, and all the pawn shops down Voortrekker Road and the other backyard pawn shops. And yeah, you're right, Michelle, that there's guys so young that walk in through these doors that I see myself in, and my story and all of that. Still at this stage, I never ever thought that I would go to prison or the streets, or end up being a guy that breaks into other people's houses and steals from our parents and when I walk into a crowd of people, or into a family function, or any function that people would pick up their cell phones off the table and put it in their pocket. But it got to a stage where it wasn't even safe in their pockets when I was around. And I was very passionate about my chefing while I was studying. I was permanently employed, and I used to do functions through agencies and things as well. And like I say, and like I say also as well, Michelle, that these stories of addiction is all the same. Just nowadays, instead of it being weed is a normal thing now. I get a lot of phone calls and the parents say, yeah, he's just on weed. Well, just weed got a lot of people schizophrenic and mental illnesses, got a lot of people psychosis, got a lot of people onto heroin. There was even a stage in my life that I managed to stop heroin for a while, and I was only smoking weed, and I said, no, the weed's keeping me off heroin, but it was actually busy leading me back. So yeah, obviously, look, things progressed, and I got much better at my job. My career was going in the right direction. I worked under Kevin Gibbs, Brian McEwen, Jacques van der Walt. These were very big names in the hospitality industry at the time. This is like 2003, 2004, 5, and at this stage, I tried heroin years before that, and I hated it. It just wasn't something that I actually smoked it when I tried it, and I just I didn't like the feeling it gave me and things like that, and and then again in my early 20s, I managed to sort of pull myself back. I had a girlfriend at the time that was completely anti-drugs, and I had just had a kid, Jordan, who is 15 now, turning 16 in December, and I managed to sort of, because the drugs were at this stage starting to make shit in my relationships, and it was causing shit in the household and things like that. I then managed to sort of slow it down enough for about a year, and obviously having a baby at the time and things like that, I was at home a lot more, and I'd drink a beer or two once a week, like, or maybe even twice a month kind of thing, and I was very chilled, doing my thing, going to work and back, and taking care of my responsibilities. I was 20 at the time when Jordan was born, and sorry, seasons are changing. And then what happened was, my initial sort of group of friends that I used to party with and do drugs with and all of that, because I had my drinking buddies that would like take ecstasy and party and things like that were my closer friends. Then I had my other buddies that we, when the one crowd of people wasn't doing something, I wouldn't go home. I would go to the other crowd of people and party with them. So I was affiliated with a lot of different groups and things like that, and used to party hard. At this stage, or just before that, I was partying very hard. I would sometimes leave the house on a Friday, and if I wasn't working on the weekend, I'd get home on a Monday morning and jump into the shower and then go to work. I'd just take some more drugs and just some more drink and operate in the kitchen, and then take some more drugs at work, and that's how it went. But I was still sort of upholding my responsibilities. But in that year that Jordan was born, I managed to like stop for a bit, and and I looked at the stopping. I didn't look at the previous behavior. I looked like, okay, so I can stop anytime and all of that, and I eventually then got affiliated again when Jordan got a little bit bigger or sort of older and didn't need as much attention and as what he did in his first months, and and I see Lenny says there, I sniffed Thai White once. Yeah, those years it was Thai White. Now it's Unga. I don't know. It's all kinds of cuck that you're injecting and getting. That's why the guys are dying a little bit quicker nowadays. And anyway, so then this initial group of friends that I used to drug with had progressed to heroin in this year that I sort of wasn't really close to them and stuff. And one day I went to work. I was working at Totanga Junction at the time, 20 years old, had my own office, qualified, and doing really well outwardly. But I had no belief in God. When Jordan was born on Christmas, it made me believe even more that I was God. But I today that I today believe that I went through these things. Possibly God allowed me to go through these things so that I can realize that I'm not God, and also realize that the hole in my soul needed to be filled spiritually by God. And at that stage, like I said, I had the not the best car on the market, but I had the car that I wanted. I had a girlfriend. I had a couple of material possessions, and I could sort of pay the bills without having to have debt and things like that. Yeah, obviously things progressed, and I had a good job. Long story short, heroin, maybe my emotional setup was different or whatever, and it just seemed easier. I was always smoking weed and doing buttons and stuff like that. And for that year that I only had a couple of beers now and then, because of having a girlfriend at the time that was completely anti-drugs, when I did have a drag of a joint or a pull of a pipe or a couple of rocks or whatever, she would notice, and it would just cause total chaos. And the day that I'd done the heroin, my emotional setup or something must have been different. But the day at work, the hours went quicker, the workload seemed lighter. When I got home, nobody noticed, so there wasn't arguments and chaos that I had been doing drugs, and I started doing it more and more. Obviously, found it easier to work the hours that I needed to work, and the outward was still progressing in the right direction. I later then was full blown addicted. Within a year, I had a lot of debt. I I was selling things, I was stealing things, and within 2 years, I had lost just about everything. I was lending a lot of money from my parents. I had stolen from them. I was locked up once or twice, and eventually went to my first rehab. At this stage, thinking that I had a heroin problem. So came out of rehab, smoked crack on the way home. Wasn't at home long, started drinking and smoking weed again. Really believing, early 20s that I had a problem with heroin and I couldn't do that. But not knowing at the time that whatever drug I do is going to lead me back to heroin again all the time. And that's the stage when I got affiliated and associated with. I'd known Mr. Hall before that, but RAEL hadn't started yet, and then I got affiliated and things with RAEL and Mr. Hall and the support group meetings and all of that, and I would mention to him like, hey, Mr. Hall, I'm not on heroin or any of the hard drugs, but I have a drag of a joint now and then and a couple of drinks, and things just progressed, and before I knew it, he warned me and said that you can't use any mood altering or mind altering substance. It's going to lead you back. I didn't think so because I couldn't see the damage that the other drugs had caused in my life before that. I could only see the damage that the heroin caused. So when we do follow-ups like we do, or we get calls from parents or whatever the case might be, and they say, no, he's doing well, he's just having a drink now and then, or he's only smoking weed, let me tell you that the harder drugs are on the way. Now, if you don't believe me, and that's why I say, why do we have to knock our heads? I was one of those oaks that I had to knock my own head. I wouldn't listen to anybody. And I eventually, I got more into sort of housebreaking and stealing from work, stealing from our parents, maxing all my accounts out, making loans, staging that my car was broken into when it was actually me that sold the stuff out of it. Sure, conning people into waiting for their money and saying that I'd pay the bills and that kind of thing, and just got myself so far into a corner that Vanna, don't you just want to get me a tissue, please, man? Sorry. And got myself so far into a corner that I didn't have a way out. I couldn't stop heroin. And I lived at sort of most family members because they didn't understand where my parents were coming from. And at that stage, this is about 10 years ago. Excuse me. And sorry, but I'm sure we all need to blow our nose from time to time. As long as I'm keeping my nose clean, it's fine, Lincoln. So at this stage, I couldn't stop heroin. Things were just getting worse. I was making debt by dealers. I was selling everything. I couldn't even keep a phone for a month. I'd make all these excuses. No, the phone is broken, or it's in for repairs, or these are definitely, Isabel, addicts are the best liars. And long story short, I started working less and doing more crime. I then lived in places where, like prefab houses that the prefab is broken halfway up the wall and there's wires hanging out of it, and there's you're not even sure what color the carpet is, and there's pipes, and there's drugs, and there's all kinds of people around. And that's what I made myself used to. That isn't where I came from, if you listen correctly earlier. And also ended up, to explain to you how bad it got, is that I wasn't even wanted at those places. I couldn't live there for too long, because I would even steal from them. I would even not even other addicts wanted to be around me. So I eventually then landed up on the streets. Mom would feed me and things like that. And it got really difficult. All the in between. There's lots of other stories of overdose and side effects of substance abuse, and all these things happening, and getting locked up, and they cornered off the super spa in Parklands, the dispatch area and the entrance area, to arrest me there for something that I thought I had gotten away with. They arrested me 4 months later for it. Yeah. My sister's husband came to come collect me from court, and I went to go stay with my sister for a while. That didn't work because I was still on drugs, still catching on cuck. And yeah, all in the meantime, still in and out of trying to get it right, but not wanting to listen, and things like that. And would speak to Mr. Hall. Would speak to Mr. Hall quite often. And sorry, Tank, don't you just want to get me some water or something, please, man? And still Coke, please, man. Thanks. And still, I got myself into such a space where I was waking up and I was cursing God, why he wouldn't just take me. I eventually, it wasn't like the good old days where there was parties, where every street I walked down in my hometown, I could stop at, or knew people at 2 or 3 different houses. I wasn't welcome at any places anymore. I wasn't allowed in certain shops. It became so lonely and isolated, and things like that. And I didn't know it at the time, but I had obviously also hurt my dad in that so much that, and I can imagine how difficult it must have been, where we'd walk past each other in a shopping center, and he'd walk past as if I'm a stranger, obviously protecting himself from me, and the damage and hurt and pain that I had caused at this stage. And which ultimately, in the bigger scheme of things, helped me. At the time, I didn't see it as help. At the time, I seen it as an excuse to drug more. And sure, got involved in a lot of bad things. You know how it goes. You hurt the people closest to you and things like that. Came to RAEL eventually. You guys have heard how I relocated, how I went to prison, how I went to the streets, how even on parole for housebreaking and theft. On parole for housebreaking and theft, and I still got 2 cases of theft while I was on parole. Yeah, and in and out of hospitals and detox centers, and one or two psych wards, been reported missing, and through all of this, there's obviously there's lots of in between incidences and things like that happened in between all of this. That is it's extremely painful for any family to have gone through what I'd put my family and myself through with the addiction. Yeah. And then there was a stage, like I said, even on parole, I couldn't understand why I still keep using this stuff, why I keep on picking it up and using it when I know all the shit that it's causing. And I was eventually evicted from the house that I was staying at while I was on parole. I was living in the yard of the house. And then, like I said, you have all heard, I relocated first to Mpumalanga, then to Joburg. I lived in a couple of different provinces and things like that. Well, I've been to a couple of different provinces to try and come right. And eventually came back to Cape Town and try to get life right on drugs. At that stage, I'd been to prison a couple of times, and I was still just trying to get life right. So I would still, but at this stage, walk very far to work. I was walking from Boersig to Pardon Island, obviously stopping at the dealer in between because that's what I needed to do to function. Life became very isolated, and I had no friends. My family was still there, even though they had to distance themselves, because if they didn't, I would just cause more pain, which was already a painful situation. And yeah, I eventually then got back into sort of contact with Mr. Hall somehow, and that's like a story on its own. And I realized that I couldn't deal with life on drugs anymore, and I didn't know how to live off drugs. And the drugs just stopped working. Even though it wasn't working, it wasn't filling that gap. Like I said, in my early 20s, I sort of had everything. So today I believe that maybe God took me down a road and allowed me to live and put me in a position that I would seek Him, because at that stage I didn't. Why would I think that I need God in my life? If I've got everything, I've got a good job, I'm making money, I'm partying, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and all of that. Yeah, I think eventually it came to a point where my life was obviously just reduced to animal level, if you want to call it that. I don't know if you guys have seen a beaten up stray dog running around with nowhere to go, with its tail between its legs, scared of everything, and usually, like if you drive close to or past the location, you see dogs like that, like beaten up and all of that, and and that's how I felt. The only time I left the house, the only reason why I was still employed was because that's what got me my drugs. And it got to a point where I was enslaved and and alone and very hurt as well. Part of me couldn't understand why people wouldn't let me close to them. And obviously, there's that other little bit of ego and arrogant part that you think to yourself, well, oh, well, like, stuff them kind of thing. Um, and it became very lonely, and the ability to feel human was lost. And I eventually, with the story on its own, went to where the support group meetings were in 2014, and and Mr. Hall was there, obviously because it was a RAEL meeting, and he's the founder of RAEL. And I'd been to a couple of rehabs, I'd been to prison, I'd relocated. I was at this stage completely addicted to the detox medication that was prescribed to me by corrupt doctors, and I was full blown addicted to the. When I say full blown, I mean at this stage I couldn't go without drugs for a couple of hours. I'm not talking about days here. I'm talking about for a couple of hours. I couldn't go without drugs. And sure. Sorry, yeah, I'm just having some hectic flashbacks. Yeah, yo. And as sick as what I was and desperate, I still tried to lie, manipulate, and control everybody and everything around me, and wanted a certain outcome. Sure, uh, uh, I lied, stole, cheated, manipulated, and just got myself deeper and deeper into isolation and hatred for myself because of what I was doing to myself. And yeah, I was very defensive about my addiction, because I think part of it, and a big part of it at that time, was because I had legal scripts. I was going through sometimes up to a liter of methadone, which is a nice name for morphine, a week, and I was taking Valiums and Pax, which is benzodiazepines. I was going through a box of 30 in probably about 4 to 5 days. I would wake up. I would wake up in the morning and take 2 sleeping tablets, take 3 tranquilizers, a sip of morphine, and that was before I went to the toilet in the morning. That was before I wiped the sleep out of my eyes. And that's what it had led up to. And I couldn't find a way out. I obviously I can't imagine what it must be like to as a young boy, see your dad living like this, me thinking it's normal at the time. I can't imagine what it must be like for your parents, knowing how neat and tidy and I was genuinely respected by most of the people and people's parents in our community growing up, and it really hurts when I see guys at the robots and on the streets in these situations. And then you get people that say that they want to be there. So obviously at this stage, I had to accept that my track record was showing me that it was impossible for me to use any kind of mood altering, mind altering, anything that makes you high in any kind of way successfully without my life going down. And yes, there are different levels of sickness when it comes to addiction, but part of it as well, I think, why I'm sitting here is that from those days in the game shop and fisheries and all of that is that I'd always been around people that lived and according to the side effects and things of addiction, and also being in prison, being in detox facilities and in hospital and in and living and operating with people that are on drugs, I think has given me the experience to know how they operate and how they think, and on the recovery side of things, I can tell you through my many rehabs that I've been to, and it's not because I'm here sitting at RAEL, it's like if you go to two different restaurants and at the one the burger's not good and it doesn't hit the spot, and you go to another restaurant and the burger does hit the spot, then obviously I'm going to tell you about the one that does hit the spot. And the same in recovery. I can tell you now that you can go onto YouTube, you can go onto any platform, you can go to any rehab, and I can guarantee you that there is no one that is on any platform or that I've met in the addiction recovery industry that has got anything at all on Mr. All when it comes to addiction and addiction recovery. Maybe that is what I believe his purpose on this planet, because it is a pandemic, and it's what's worked for me. So that is how I got here eventually in 2014. I was at a meeting and I told Mr. All I don't want to be like this, but I don't know how not to be like this, and you're supposed to be at a point or place where it becomes common sense that I cannot use this stuff, but yet I kept going back. So without a recovery program, I'm going to keep going back to drugs. If I stop doing what I'm doing now, I will pick up. And I can tell you, you know, you think of the people in the hospitality industry, that there's no thanks in that industry, and maybe in the nursing and caring industry. I can tell you that there's less thanks and more backstabbers in the addiction industry. Because today what happens is, a person comes in here broken, so does the parents, okay? They heal a little bit on the outside and start looking good in a month's time, okay? Mom and dad believe the place must be working. The son also says, yes, this is such a lovely place, look how well I'm doing. Because they're trying to show and impress their parents on how well they're doing. And then myself, Mr. Hall, and our team is the best thing since the popcorn machine at the movie house. And we are the greatest people to have walked the earth. A month later, things aren't going all too lekker with the guy in recovery, because he's not taking the suggested steps, and he's not doing what he's meant to be doing, and he doesn't have a backbone, and he doesn't have the balls to do his recovery, and he's not getting his way at home like he does with his mommy and daddy, and because he can't over here. And we can only teach recovery the way it needs to be taught in order to recover. And then he starts maybe complaining a little bit to mom and dad. And this is the cycle of how things go. I'm sure Clutchy and Gladwin can even attest to this and say that this is a similar cycle for them. But you go through waves while you're busy recovering. And by the third month, mom and dad says, oh no, maybe we should take him out here, or this or that, or whatever the case might be. Forgetting the pain and the position that they were in when they got here. All of them. And then we become the enemy. We become the bad people in the situation. I actually bumped into somebody yesterday that was here for 4 years and went into a relationship that he wasn't ready for, that just because of the way addiction recovery works, and I really hope and pray it doesn't happen, but he's not upholding his recovery. We became the bad people in the situation because the girlfriend didn't like us and the girlfriend couldn't accept. I'm lucky that I'm in a relationship that, like Richie, whose girlfriends support and accept. Okay, not my girlfriend. I'm getting married on the 28th of November. From living on the streets and being in isolation and not being able to speak to anybody, and wanting to commit suicide and praying to God that I die. Yeah, I'm getting married on the 28th of November. But I was taught a couple of things. And so I bumped into this oak that was here for quite a while, still sober and all of that, but went into a relationship and put his relationship before his recovery. And I can tell you now, there's people that come through this program that forget how they got to the top. Not to the top, but how they got out of the hole that they were in. And myself, Mr. Hall, and our team at RAEL become the bad people. You know, and when the person relapses, remember they were doing well, and they were telling mom and dad what a lovely place it is in the first month. And suddenly we become the bad people. It happened to you, Tank? Because you went through a little fanny wobble here. Because you couldn't handle life on life's terms. and recovery took the back burner. And we all know the 3 Ps. And when we become the bad people, relapse is waiting. That is what I'm telling everybody here this evening, and you can spread our message far and wide. We don't need to speak about our results and try and sell RAEL. My life is a testimony for what RAEL does. The guys that have gotten sober here, whether they are friends or not, whether they leave here and they're not friends with us, and they stay sober, our job is done, man. Our primary purpose over here is to get a person sober, show them how to live life and enjoy it without drugs, make decisions not influenced by obsession. And if they can't do that, then they're not ready to leave and they're on their way to relapse. And over here, we'll expose them to everything that isn't dangerous. You'll be exposed to being able to have fun, because we're not a lockdown facility. We go to the swimming pools. We go for milkshakes at Spur. We go to Theewaterskloof. We go for drives around Cape Point all together, showing people that we're addicts and that we are sober and that they can also be sober. But in this game, the very people that you help stab you in your back. And when that happens, just the way the world works is that they stand no chance. This is an illness that you'll come in here begging for help and willing to do anything. And a week later, when you regain your energy, and 2 weeks later when you're feeling physically well, you think you're recovered, and then you want to start running the rehab and start telling us how to do recovery, who struggled and fought for our recovery for 10, 15 years. And that's just the reality of addiction. I've done the same. "12, 13 years ago, I was trying to tell Mr. Hall how I'm going to stay sober. I then got sober 7 years later with his help, because I'd messed myself up so badly that I had to do things his way, because that was the only way out. It worked while I was listening. And even though there were still more lessons for me to learn, and I healed, and I built my life and my self-esteem and all the good things inwardly and outwardly up again, I then started getting disrespectful, and the lack of my daily maintenance of my program started filtering into other places of my life, and I was warned, and I was warned, and I was warned again. But like our parents, and like me that sits here, trying to teach the principles of how we have to live and things like that, Mr. Hall, a lot of the times, because he knows how good recovery makes you feel, he wants the recovery for the guys here more than what they wanted themselves. I've recovered here. Many other people have recovered here. And I can tell you now, like Gladwin, Clutchy, Garth, Justin, Freddie, Kyle, sure. There's plenty names. These are just the guys that I'm in contact with daily. Jared, Stassen, that oak that phoned me from the UK. Another guy, Dean Felix. A lot of people's names. JP, Graham, Grant, Tank, Angus. Sure, if I go through the files and the names of the oaks that stay sober, it's the oaks that have listened and are listening still and living the program. So there's nothing wrong with our program, and we're not the bad people, man. When something went wrong at a recovery center, then I also used to tell mom how bad it was there and what was going on and how wrong it is and all of that, because I was sick. After I got arrogant and stopped listening to Mr. Hall again. We all know this part of my story. Left, relapsed, and almost killed myself. I didn't try and kill myself, but I almost dragged myself to death. I'd done a lot of shit again. I broke into the girl's house, Mel, who I'm marrying now, and done a lot of damage there. Tried everything that I had tried before again to get sober. I tried relocating again. I even tried going to another rehab in between. I was out of that rehab for a week, and then I was drinking Captain Morgan rum. And that is why I'm back here, is because if you could pick up in between of how bad it was, that there was times in my life that I couldn't go hours, just a certain amount of hours without drugs, then surely the people that haven't been that far down the scale, this program can work for them as well. So, like I said, there's lots of other things in between that has happened. I can tell you that I have friends here. I have people I can phone at any time of the night. I know that over here I've been taught how to live and enjoy life, and I've been taught how to go to a braai where people are drinking and not even think in my mind. And an addict will know. You go to a braai, you're meant to be in recovery, and now you're standing there and you're checking like, hey, everybody's drinking, yeah, smoke, I dig to have a sip or something. I can go to any place now because my recovery is so strong and it's been done the right way and taught the right way to me. And those people can drink. They can do what they want to around me. Anybody can do anything. At the end of the day, my recovery is my responsibility. And I can't blame my mistakes on anybody or anything else. And like I said, from that place of living on an animal level, waking up not wanting to be alive anymore, cursing God for for allowing me to wake up in the morning. My mom can maybe share one night how I used to limp through the house in the morning, not being able to move until I had drugs in my system. Living in complete isolation, coming to a rehabilitation or a wellness center or a getaway, couple of months getaway program to work on myself, to learn how to have fun, to learn how to handle situations that used to confuse the shit out of me, to have peace inside me, to feel wholeness, to be able to look anybody in the eye, to be able to acknowledge when I've made mistakes and try my best to correct them. And to have real true friends and a loving family of my own. So I didn't really want to do a textbook meeting. I know there's not different versions of my story, but there's, like I said, if I have to sit here and tell you all the in-between, there is going to be so much hours spent listening to it, and I can't remember time, faces, places, what came first, what didn't come first, but I can tell you that there was a lot of pain involved. And if addiction isn't treated in the right way, it's going to be a lengthy, long-term, painful process that people don't need to go through. So thank you all. Thank you to RAEL and to Mr. Hall and and to God for this organization. Thank you all for watching. Remember, tomorrow is Orange Friday. It's our free campaign that we don't need a Backer Buddy account for. All you need to do is change your profile picture, update your profile picture, maybe wear something orange, and that's to create awareness. Thank you all for watching. I'm looking very forward to seeing Mr. Hall tomorrow. He's my boss, he's my sponsor, he's my friend, and I know that as long as I'm willing to go to any length for my recovery, that he'll be willing to go to any length next to me, guiding me through it. God bless you all.